Hello and welcome to the Financial Bunny TV. My name is Nicolette Mashile. I am also known as the Financial Bunny. Today's topic, I want to talk a little bit about money and women. We are, of course, in Women's Month. So happy Women's Month to everybody. Happy Women's Month to the men too, because if your woman is happy, then you are happy, right? So this is the month that you know at least there's a guarantee that if you do the right thing, they're going to be happy throughout the whole month. But let's talk a little bit about women and money, because it somehow seems like there is a skew or a push for women's money to be treated very differently when it comes to men's money, when it comes to financial planning. And this is not because we want special treatment as women, but because the factors and the consequences point in that direction. In actual fact, I recently went to a media roundtable or a media update with Old Mutual Consultants and their REM channel, right? And one of the things that came out there, and I'm going to read you a quote which was quite important. It says that to ensure equitable outcomes, we need to recognize that treating everyone the same does not always result in equal outcomes. Treating everybody the same does not always equal to, or does not result rather, to equal outcomes. Why is that? It is because there are several factors that come into play when you're looking at financial planning for women versus financial planning for men. And it is important for us to realize this, because if we don't realize it, we're going to continue to disadvantage and prejudice women when it comes to their financial planning from a savings perspective to an investing perspective and into a retirement and estate planning perspective. So one of the reasons why Old Mutual actually hosted this specific media roundtable is because they wanted to put a gender lens on the two-part retirement system that's about to kick off on the 1st of September, right? So they were actually in favor of the two-part retirement system, because ultimately what it does is that it changes the outcomes of retirement even for women, or especially for women, if we can make sure that women stay invested in their retirement. The research actually shows that during that COVID-19 crisis, Australian women were the ones that were withdrawing the most money from their retirement. And we know most women during COVID-19, during that crisis, a lot of women were actually withdrawing for family responsibility reasons. The moment you withdraw from your retirement, you are ultimately disturbing and interfering with the compounding that should then happen. But let's say withdrawing is a choice. So with a little bit more education, women will understand that they should not be withdrawing from their pension or from their retirement fund. In the same breath also, if there is not a good enough reason, which generally there isn't, is that when you do resign, now, with this old regime that we currently have, you should not be withdrawing your pension. You should at least either be transferring it to your new employer, provided that they've got a retirement fund that you can actually tap into, or you need to put into a preservation fund. But withdrawing the actual pension is not always the best idea. Right, now I think we all understand that. And if as much education that we can do to try and make sure women understand this would be absolutely fantastic. However, there are other reasons that come into play that many of us don't think about. First and foremost, South African women are lagging in terms of pay to their male counterparts. In the upper echelons, it's almost 18%. In the lower, it's 25% lag. So there's still a huge pay disparity between women and men. Women are not being paid the same amount of money for the same job, same qualification, and equal at that. And even worse, women sometimes are even 150% more qualified. They just don't get paid enough. Don't get paid the same. So already they have to sacrifice how much they can contribute to retirement. Then the second problem is that in South Africa, there are still some companies that do not pay women a full salary during maternity leave. Which means that during those months, unless a woman has got a partner who can fully financially support her, she might need to compromise her retirement contribution. Again, disturbing retirement contribution. The third one that I found out at this media roundtable is that if a woman goes on maternity leave and she does get paid less than what she would have been paid. So let's say the company decides that you actually, we'll pay you half. Or in some instances, some companies just simply say it's unpaid leave. Some women do not have an alternative to be able to be compensated for some of their debt repayments. So they're actually saying that income protection cannot step in because that is not an insurable risk. So now you need to figure out and make a plan of how you're going to pay for your debts during that time. And women don't just have one child. Some women have 2, 3, 4 children. So how many times are you having to take a break in employment? And how many times do you find yourself in a situation where you might be compromising your financial planning simply because of that? But there was an even more interesting statistics that Old Mutual showed us. And that is because women live longer than men, right? Women live longer than men. So the life expectancy of women, in fact, I think there was a number or some research or statistics that came out in the media last week that women have now got a life expectancy of 73 years old. A woman who gets to retirement years with R1 million and her counterpart, a man who gets also to retirement with R1 million, women are going to have to buy less pension because of the life expectancy being high. It is absolutely important for all of us to understand this. Women need more money at retirement than men to achieve the same financial stability. As a 65-year-old male with R1 million, he can buy 3,833 rands worth of pension a month, while a female of the same age can only buy 3,167 a month. And this is based on a living annuity. These are the numbers that Old Mutual has come out with. So it is absolutely crucial that when we are going to be considering financial planning for women, it needs to sound different. Financial advice for women needs to take into account all of these things. Less money because they get paid less. The fact that there may be instances where women need to take a break from deriving an income for family responsibility. But also, I think what the trend is showing us in terms of what women do, because women are more likely to go into debt for family responsibility than men. So it is absolutely crucial that when we are advising women and we are having conversations about investment options, we actually talk through a gender lens. Over and above that, even with investing, a lot of women are less likely, and I'm going to be very frank with this. When a woman and a man fall pregnant, both parties have fallen pregnant, not the person who carries. Both parties have fallen pregnant. However, what we find is that the natural thing is that the woman will become the primary caregiver in this country, to an extent where in some instances the man is totally absent. So that already should give you an indication that that woman, even if she were to go and invest her money, she is going to be far more cautious than the man who's just walking away. I want to call him the deadbeat, but I know that I'm going to get a lot of backlash from it. But essentially, you're a deadbeat if you've walked away from your child. So now that man has a little bit more freedom to invest his money in a higher risk, because actually the burden of caregiving does not rest with him. She has to be cautious in terms of where she puts her money. She has to manage emotions. She has to manage risk or potential risk. So what do women do? They generally go into far lesser, riskier, less aggressive investment options. And most women, what do they choose? Bank options. Bank options are mostly invested in cash. They don't give themselves exposure to your equity market, the real estate market, or whatever it is that is a little bit more riskier. Because they need to be cautious. It calls for them to be cautious. Why? Primary caregivers. So I think that in August month, I really, really want women and men to think about this phenomena that we're finding ourselves in. To really think about it. And when you are doing your investment planning, to remember that it is very, very important to look at all of the factors and not use what the common economic model puts in front of us. Because there are benchmarks. There are benchmarks for everything. Say 15%. You gotta contribute this amount of money. You have to save 3 to 6 months worth of emergency fund. It's not the same when other factors are factored in, and a gender lens is one of those factors that we need to bring in. So I think the first and probably most important thing is we need to make sure that we're educating at every level. Fund managers need to educate. Retirement managers, retirement, for me, the trustees of the retirement need to make sure that they are getting somebody who can do proper retirement education. We need to find ways to help women build liquidity within their finances so that they don't find themselves having to depend on retirement funds or fees or savings as their emergency funds. So a woman's reason to keep an emergency fund is absolutely crucial. We need to relook at the strategy of retirement contributions and the investment strategy on funds. I was actually having this conversation around default retirement funds, or the default option. So when you join a retirement fund as part of your employer fund, the trustees have been given the responsibility to find the default options that are available that look at the greater employer group, right? But how do you actually look at a greater employer group if you don't actually factor in that you have a future prospect of hiring more women? Because you got to take that into consideration. Right now, most of these employer default funds are actually divided into low risk, mid-risk, or mid-level risk, and high risk. And generally, a lot of people choose a low risk one. But if you're still new and you're early, and you would have heard this from the podcast with Simon Brown and Jimmy Moyaha, is that if you're still young, you've got time on your side. So choose. It would be better for you to choose the more high risk and more aggressive one. Because the fund manager is managing the account. So they will at some point take you out of that high risk as you're getting closer to your retirement years. But you got to take advantage of the years and time that you do have and go into a much higher risk. But the wording of higher risk generally puts people off. High risk means that I might actually lose. That's what we think it means. But it just means that it's going to give you a little bit more exposure to more aggressive investment options. The last thing, and probably the most important, we have to promote fair pay principles. We have to encourage gender equality when it comes to how women are paid. In fact, yesterday, it was such a funny thing. One of the guys that I have on WhatsApp posed this thing about the pay gap issue. And he says, as a man, by the way, listen to this privilege. I never had to worry about this until I had daughters. It never bothered him. It didn't bother him that his women counterparts in the same job as him get paid less up until it touched him in his studio, and his studio are his daughters. We need to fix this issue, guys. We need to fix this issue, and it cannot be a prejudice of saying women must now have side hustles on the side so that they can just equalize how much they actually get paid. It's not fair. We still need to manage mental health. We still need to manage a healthy work-life balance. It can't be that I need to take up 3 jobs for me to be paid or at least earn the same amount as my male counterpart who only has to do 1 job. But I'm going to leave it at there. Happy Women's Month. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys on the next one. Mwah.